I don't know if you've been following the dramatic fall of Kevin Spacey, but if not, let me break it down for you, because it really was dramatic. This is the story of one of Hollywood's biggest stars who lost everything almost overnight. Roles, contracts, money, and most of all, his reputation. Not long ago, he was a two-time Oscar winner and one of the most respected actors of his generation. And now, there's no place for him in Hollywood anymore. Kevin Spacey is a guy whose life story goes way beyond the dry, encyclopedia-style facts no one really cares about. Take this for example. When he was a kid, he had so much energy that his parents ended up sending him to military school. But that didn't last long. He got kicked out after throwing a tire at another student. It wasn't until high school that Kevin found his true calling: theater. After class, he'd spend hours at the New Art Theater watching old classic films and obsessing over every little detail in the actors' performances. That's where his passion, and some might say obsession, with acting really began. His first steps on stage were actually in New York comedy clubs, where he wowed crowds with his spot-on impressions of Hollywood stars. From there, he made his way into serious theater. In 1981, he joined the Public Theater and quickly made a name for himself as an incredibly versatile actor. He could switch from Shakespeare to modern drama like it was nothing. That talent earned him recognition, and eventually a prestigious Tony Award, for his role in the Broadway play Lost in Yonkers. That was his big break into Hollywood. One of Spacey's most iconic roles, one that also earned him an Oscar, was Verbal Kint in The Usual Suspects. He got so into the role that he limped not just during filming, but off camera too. Even the crew didn't know it was all part of the act. Then there was American Beauty, where he spent months learning to smoke cigarettes a certain way, just to make this character feel more believable. As you can tell, Kevin Spacey was completely obsessed with cinema. He loved it so much that he once bought an old Oscar at an auction, just to return it to the Academy, saying, "Awards have their rightful homes." For years, he also ran London's Old Vic Theatre, where he launched all kinds of experimental projects. One of the most interesting was the 24-hour plays, where actors had just one day to create an entire production from scratch. His life wasn't short on movie-level plot twists either. In 2004, he reported being assaulted in London's Hyde Park, only to later admit he had actually tripped over his dog while running from a phone thief. Sometimes his ideas were just hard to wrap your head around. Like in 2010 when he secretly met with officials from North Korea to try and organize a Shakespeare tour. Yes, Shakespeare in North Korea. The plan obviously never happened, but it shows just how deeply Spacey believed in the power of art to bridge worlds. Kevin Spacey was an actor you could never fully figure out. A perfectionist, a master of transformation, a man full of contradictions. On screen and off, he blurred the line between reality and performance so well that even now, it's hard to tell where the actor ended and the character began. But at some point, the name Kevin Spacey stopped being associated only with brilliant acting. The accusations began, and they changed everything about how the world sees him. It was the fall of 2017, and the Me Too movement was sweeping through Hollywood. Powerful names were being called out one after another. And then came an accusation that hit Kevin Spacey's career like a wrecking ball. Actor Anthony Rapp, known for shows like Star Trek Discovery, claimed that Spacey had sexually assaulted him over 30 years earlier. According to Rapp, it happened in 1986. He says Spacey invited him to his Manhattan apartment when he was just 14 years old. At some point, when they were alone, Spacey allegedly picked him up, laid him on the bed, and held him down in a way that clearly suggested sexual intent. That one accusation opened the floodgates. More men started coming forward with similar stories. Stories about Spacey allegedly crossing boundaries, making unwanted advances, even using his power and influence in creepy or aggressive ways. And Spacey's response definitely didn't help his case. He released a statement saying he didn't remember the incident, but if it did happen, he was sorry. Then, in the very same message, he came out as gay. For a lot of people, it felt like he was trying to distract from the real issue. like he was using his coming out as a shield to avoid taking full responsibility. The backlash was intense. Critics accused him of conflating homosexuality with predatory behavior, something that really upset the LGBTQ+ community too. But the story didn't end there. In the months and years that followed, more allegations surfaced. And in the UK, where Spacey had spent years as the artistic director of London's Old Vic Theatre, things got serious. In 2023, a criminal trial began in London. Spacey was accused of sexually assaulting 4 men between 2001 and 2013. The charges included groping, drugging, and forcing sexual acts. One man even testified that Spacey grabbed his crotch so hard, he lost control of the car he was driving and veered off the road. Spacey, though, pleaded not guilty. He insisted the encounters were consensual and claimed the accusations were part of an effort to destroy his career. He argued that his reputation was ruined before he even had the chance to defend himself. And in July 2023, a jury found him not guilty on all charges. Reports said Spacey was visibly emotional, even crying, when the verdict was read. But even though he won in court, his career? That was another story. Hollywood had already turned its back on him. Projects were shelved, roles canceled, and more allegations just kept surfacing. One of the men involved in the criminal trial later filed a civil lawsuit. Spacey missed the deadline to respond, so the court initially ruled in favor of the plaintiff by default, but his lawyers managed to get that decision overturned, arguing it was a legal team error, not his. Still, the damage was done. No matter how many cases he beats in court, the name Kevin Spacey is now permanently linked to scandal. And just recently, Channel 4 aired a documentary called Spacey Unmasked, bringing even more accusations to light. Spacey denied them all. In an interview with Piers Morgan, he admitted he had done bad things in the past, things he takes full responsibility for, but said he won't apologize for something he says never happened.
As I did a few minutes ago, you talk about bad behavior that you committed. What do you mean by that? What's your idea of bad behavior when you look back at what you were doing?
Pushing the boundaries.
In what way? I mean,
being too handsy, touching someone sexually,
groping people
in a way that I didn't know at the time they didn't want. Yeah.
And that's where things took a serious turn. The allegations against Kevin Spacey sparked an immediate reaction, and the fallout for his career was catastrophic. The film industry turned its back on him almost overnight, and the damage was irreversible. Netflix moved quickly. Spacey was dropped from the cast of House of Cards, a show that had built much of its success around his character, Frank Underwood. That decision was unheard of at the time and sent a clear message. Hollywood had no intention of tolerating controversy. As a result, Spacey didn't just lose a major role. The creators had to completely rewrite the show's storyline without him. But that was just the beginning. Director Ridley Scott made a move the industry had never seen before. He removed Spacey from the already completed film All the Money in the World. Scott wasn't willing to risk backlash or bad press. Even though it must have been a logistical nightmare, he replaced Spacey with Christopher Plummer, reshooting all of Spacey's scenes just weeks before the premiere. It was a massive financial and creative undertaking, but the message was loud and clear. The film world wanted nothing to do with Kevin Spacey. Facing total exile from Hollywood, Spacey tried to take control of the narrative. In 2018, he released a bizarre video titled Let Me Be Frank, where, speaking in character as Frank Underwood, he addressed viewers directly, hinting that the truth would eventually come out.
I know what you want.
He dropped the video on Christmas Eve, and instead of gaining sympathy, it only added to the confusion surrounding him. The video sparked a wave of speculation. Some saw it as manipulative. Others thought it was a desperate attempt to remind people he still existed, and still had control. But whatever the goal was, it completely backfired. Rather than paving a way back, it pushed him even further from any kind of comeback. And as if the public fallout wasn't enough, it all came with a heavy price tag. Spacey lost millions of dollars. Studio after studio distanced themselves from him, making it nearly impossible to land any project that could get him back on his feet financially. For years, he had nothing new in the works, and by 2023, he officially filed for bankruptcy. He sold off his properties. His life turned into a nightmare. Once one of the most respected and celebrated actors in Hollywood, now a persona non grata, blacklisted by the industry, and broke. These days, Spacey has made small attempts to return, mostly appearing in low-budget indie films, but it's hard to imagine his Hollywood status ever fully recovering. Even though he was acquitted in his criminal trials, studios still aren't willing to take the risk of hiring someone with a reputation that damaged. Kevin Spacey's case remains one of the most complex and symbolic examples of a Hollywood star's fall from grace in the Me Too era. Was he a victim of cancel culture, or was his exile from the film industry justified? As always, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. On the one hand, there was a lack of solid evidence, witness statements that didn't hold up, and trials that ended in his favor. His career basically collapsed within days of the first accusations. He lost his lead role in House of Cards, got pulled from Ridley Scott's film, and Hollywood shut him out almost immediately. Even after being cleared of the charges in court, the industry still refused to welcome him back. So it's not surprising that, to many people, he became a symbol of someone destroyed by a media storm that left no room for the presumption of innocence. But on the other hand, it's also not surprising that things turned out this badly for him. There were multiple accusations, strange behind-the-scenes stories, and personal accounts from people claiming Spacey abused his power. All of that suggests he wasn't just a victim of some witch hunt. Were his actions criminal? Legally, the court said no. Were they morally wrong? That's probably up to interpretation. Spacey's still trying to rebuild his reputation, but his return to film has been slow and uncertain. There's no doubt that Hollywood has exiled him. But was it all media hysteria? Or was it a fair consequence for years of misconduct? In the end, the verdict is still very much up for debate.